What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and I know news has been a little bit slow lately, but I do appreciate you sticking it out with me and engaging. I uploaded a video this morning about some hate baiting that Polygon did. That was pretty hilarious. If you want to check that out, that would be awesome. And today's last video, and it's an interesting one, is about double standards in video games, and we're going to use Mortal Kombat, the latest Mortal Kombat game, to perfectly encapsulate what I'm talking about. So in the recent version of Mortal Kombat 11, the most recent version of Mortal Kombat, NetherRealm Games confirmed that they made specific stylistic decisions to how the women fighters looked in the game. They offered a very fair, reasonable explanation as to why, and I want to now take a dump all over it because it's total BS. Now, a lot of my detractors will make the argument that, ooh, it's the same people that talk junk about the Dead or Alive series, making certain design decisions to appease Western markets. This is not to appease Western markets. This is to appease pearl-clutching games journalists that want everyone to be ugly just like they are, I assume. Now, obviously, the costume or the clothing that a character is wearing in a fighting game is not relevant to 90% of the game, whether it's mechanics or if it has a story mode or, you know, that kind of stuff. That's obviously more relevant. If you're playing a sports game, you know, the game actually functioning as intended is probably more important than you know, the uniforms being specifically correct. In this case, and with the Dead or Alive case, we see pointed decisions to cover up women in the game. And I'm going to share their character lead designs reasoning for it, and then totally blow it out of the water. So, speaking of Polygon, Steve Baran, NetherRealm's art director, confirmed to the outlet that that the game went through an intentional design change. Polygon preference Baran's comments by saying, Baran says his team has taken a more measured approach with the art direction of Mortal Kombat 11. That's especially true in the game's female fighters. Some of you may have noticed that our coverage of MK11, all the women were covered practically from head to toe. This included both newcomers Jackie and Cassie Cage, and who were introduced in MK10, but weren't typically as spicy as classic characters, and other mainstay characters like Kitana, Jade, and Scarlet. Many gamers pointed out that it seemed odd that the women were so covered up at MK11 compared to the 25-year history of NetherRealm indulging in creating scantily clad femme fatales. Well, after lots of debates over the matter, Baran confirmed to Polygon that the choice to cover up the female characters was quite deliberate, saying, "Our character lead, Brendan George, has been a breath of fresh air, just introducing new ideas." His new idea is to cover the women up. Okay, good, nice. "Our design is getting more mature and respectful." Okay, fine. You're not going to wear a bikini to a fight. You're not going to be showing so much skin. Well, that's factually inaccurate. Now, would you be wearing a bikini? No. Okay, so the spirit of what he's saying is correct, but he's pissing on your leg and telling you it's raining. If you look at female MMA fighters in the ring, I would say this is about as close to bathing suits as you would see on any beach. You know, these are from the ring. You don't wear tons of clothes because you don't want to give your opponent anything to grab onto. All right, so it's factually incorrect that you would be wearing tight-fitting or minimal clothes in some sort of fighting scenario. It's the same reason when you look at dudes who have had a lot of experience fighting, one of the first things they do, take off their shirt. So it doesn't give you anything to grab onto. That is a fact. If you look at prison fights, one of the things that prisoners will do is not only take their shirt off, but they'll cover themselves in baby oil so they're more slippery and hard to get a hold of. I know it's funny, but it's true, and it's proven. I mean, and it's probably a legitimate advantage in a fight. Okay? Not saying that I wouldn't, not saying I want all the female MMA fighters getting greased up or anything. That's a different category. But I digress. I think it's just what the game is about. You're going to fight for your life. You're not going to be wearing such scantily clad items. Again, Now, that argument might hold weight. Okay, it might hold weight if they weren't dressing the men just as they always have, wearing basically loincloths. The women are fully clothed from head to toe in like battle armor. Men, shirtless. Shirtless man. Shirtless man. I think. I can't tell if he's wearing a shirt or not. I don't think he is. Also, shirtless. I mean, what are we talking about here? So, obviously he's lying. His reasoning, while makes sense, is not in practice for the male characters. Now, where the statement that I take some issues with, I mean, first of all, this first statement is just a provable lie, okay? If you believed that, you would have dressed the men up, not put them in loincloths, okay? Now, this quote, "I'm sure that will disappoint some fans. We don't have bathing suit fighters, and I think that's fine. If people are disappointed, I don't regret making that change by any means." Sounds like an ideologue to me. Your fans are the ones that pay your bills. Your fans are the ones that buy the game, that pay for the DLC, that attend your launch events, that watch streams, that go to competitive tournaments. I admit publicly, obviously, that the dress of the characters is a small thing, but it's not irrelevant. And to basically lie to your fans is pathetic. And then to drop the statement that, well, if you don't like it, basically, this is another iteration of don't like it, don't buy it. We all know what this is about. This is about basically Sharia-fying games. The men obviously have no problem. None of the women have their classic costumes save for Sonya, who sports workout gear throwback from MK3. None of the leotard swimsuits or bikinis, as Baron mentioned, have been added to MK11, and they won't be added. Some people have been hoping that maybe there'll be gear pieces for scantily clad options for the females from the past 25 years of Mortal Kombat, but as Baron pointed out in his statement to Polygon, they won't be adding scantily clad items to the game. This means gear pieces won't be available to recreate MK9's ninja gear or barely their bikini armor. Baron's comments confirm that there are no spicy females in MK11, not like how they were in every other previous iteration of Mortal Kombat. It's interesting. It's funny because YouTubers like KickV mentioned that even if the gear pieces were locked behind DLC, he would pay for it, but apparently NetherRealm doesn't want money of gamers who favor fan service. Now, it's another iteration of exactly what we saw with Dead or Alive, and I don't buy it. I don't buy that this is really about the game maturing. This is about avoiding criticism at the expense of what you must deem is a expendable portion of the fan base. Now, when we saw DOA Extreme Venus Vacation versus DOA 6, okay, here is some factual evidence brought to you by Ethnic Weeb. Good on you. Every single one of you who lambasted me for speaking out against censorship, who called me an incel and man baby, who lied about how changing DOA's identity was going to bring in a new audience, look at this screenshot. I win. I was right. And everybody knows it. We're talking about the same period. This is from March 1st, 2019 to March 28th, 2019. In Extreme Venus Vacation, you had 3,000 people playing it in a 24-hour peak of 7,000. Dead or Alive 6, just 250 people with a maximum pathetic peak of 619. I mean, that is even the all-time peak only at 1/3, less than 1/3 of what the Extreme Venus Vacation was. Of course, if the game was successful, then they would have already done a press release announcing sales and shipment numbers. All companies do this, but Koei could not do it for DOA 6. Am I happy about this? No, it never should have happened, but it did. The only satisfaction I get from this is that I have every right to rub this bittersweet victory in your snot-nosed faces, you putrid little poops. SJWs ruin everything they get their hands on, almost out of principle despite everyone else. I mean, is there a better argument for this? For some of the people on Twitter thread arguing that it's unfair to compare DOA Extreme Venus Vacation to DOA 6 because one is free to play and the other is retail release, they really need to check DOA 6 Core Fighter Steam ID and look it up on the Steam charts. It's a 38380, the same Steam ID as the retail release that never exceeded 2,095 all-time peak concurrent players. As in, even after going free with Kasumi, Basatomi, and Diego included, DOA 6 only gained 5 days where the concurrent players managed to get over 1,000. DOA 5 never even reached those numbers. Why would the numbers have been, what would the numbers have been like if they hadn't censored it? 9,000 players peak like Jump Force, 14,000 at Mortal Kombat X. Seems like fighting games are at their player base and a lot more. Seems to me that fighting games and their player base has a lot more to do with franchise than Bob's. Well, I think that is possible. You could make that argument, but regardless, there's obviously significantly less interest in games that have been censored, and it also creates a lot of bad press too when you look at it. And ultimately, as I've said, this type of double standard is more angering than anything, but does the core fan really care? I think that there's obviously a noticeable percentage of them that do. Are they not buying it anyway? Sales numbers will tell us. But in terms of Mortal Kombat and the way that they're telling us, well, it's about getting more mature, that's a steaming pile of BS. If you're telling me that it worked for DOA, that's provably false. Is the franchise just waning? Sure, that's possible. But I think you could at least argue that it clearly didn't help it. It didn't bring in a new successful audience. You don't see the headlines talking about, it's funny that all these people pushing for the censorship in the game, which they won, you don't see them. You don't see the post talking about how great the game is selling now, do you? Because they come in, impose their will, and then move on to something else and impose their will upon that. They don't actually care about the game. They don't care about the community. They only care about power, and they care about pushing their ideology on others. So what if people like to play with scantily clad fighters? I mean, to me, as long as, you should just have it as an option. If people want to buy the stuff, let them buy the stuff. Who cares? The idea that you would kind of shame by, indirectly shame your players by saying well, you're immature if you want this. The idea that you would have a design lead come out and basically lie and say, well, we want everyone fully clothed because that's how people would fight. That's BS. It's not real in the real world, and it's not real even consistently in that game. So this is, of course, about making games boring, about whitewashing it, about making it just like every other fighting game. And that's sad, because eventually I would be very, very surprised if DOA in the next version doesn't go all the way the other direction, and I would endorse that. However, it might be too late for them. Well, what do you think? Do you think it's that big of a deal? Probably not. But I think we can all agree that the lead designer from Mortal Kombat is full of BS. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.